All right, Jesse, we're here. We're rolling. It's working. Everything's good.
Hello, hello.
Hi. You good? You rolling?
I'm great.
Yeah.
Logic's rolling. Camera's rolling.
I'm so excited to finally get you on the show here. It's been a long
I'm really
time
happy
coming.
to be here.
Yeah, I think we were just talking about this before we were rolling, but I really, like, when I discovered your content, I was like, that guy is totally my friend. Like, if we met in real life, I feel like we would just be best buds. So,
And that's something I actually really like about YouTube is I've had that feeling with a lot of different people whose videos that I watch. And in a way that when you're watching TV, you can't just see a character or even an actor and think, we could be friends. Whereas on YouTube, it's like, no, you can. You can just literally be their friend.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was joking with somebody recently about how, like, the only reason I make reviews and make content is so that I have an excuse to hang out with all these amazing people on
That's
the
so
internet.
funny.
So
I've even thought, like, if the day comes where I delete all of my social media, how will I stay in touch with, like, all the friends? I don't want them to not be my friends anymore.
I know, exactly. And I'm having that same debate about, like, considering hopping over to, like, a more entertainment niche and pursuing comedy and stuff outside of the camera gear world. And I'm like, but I don't want to lose all my friends. But I guess that wouldn't necessarily happen, right?
It doesn't necessarily, but it is a fear. And I also think this year, too, I've seen so many people, I'm sure you have as well, in our niche, whatever you want to call it.
Whatever you want to call it, yeah. It goes both ways.
Yeah, that have branched out from the camera-specific world of it. So many people, we saw Levi kind of went back to his roots out of as much camera stuff, more into the adventure filmmaking, but more into the van life stuff. Cody Blue. Was it Cody?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Cody switched completely into travel stuff too.
Travel stuff. Who else? I mean, I've seen this a bunch of times, and most of those people have had a similar experience, which is once you switch, your views drop, because a lot of the subscribers were signed up for a very specific thing. And then when you say, hey, I'm not going to do that thing anymore, they disappear or they don't watch it. Whatever, that's to be expected. But then most of them have had the experience where, I don't know how long it takes, maybe it takes a few months, but eventually you find that audience, or rather that audience probably finds you, and you're able to pick it back up. And if anything, I would imagine branching out. I bet most of those niches are actually bigger than the very specific camera niche that we exist in right now.
Yeah, that's been kind of my debate, and it's something that you and I talked about on Clubhouse a couple of weeks ago, which, by the way, that app is hilarious, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
There's so many experts on that app and a lot of conversations that I've jumped into. Have you ever, like, seen a couple of your friends in a Clubhouse and you want to join, but you don't want them to see that you've joined, so you just don't join because you know that if you join, they'll see you pop in and then pop out real quick. You know what I mean?
Yep. I'm always self-conscious about that, especially because I don't know. Does the app show you how many people are tuned in before you click it? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it'll show you, like...
Oh, that's helpful.
Well, sometimes it'll tell you, like, a couple hundred or something. So if there's, like, 1,000 people in it, then I have no problem jumping in, but...
Right, but it's like sometimes
only,
you'll see
people.
Yeah, sometimes you see a friend on Instagram Live or something, and you're like, oh, I wonder what they're up to. And it's like 2 people are watching, and now you're one of them. And you're like, how do I leave and not look like a jerk?
Yeah, it's like Tyler Stallman with, like, 3 people, and then you pop in, and he's like, oh, hey, Jesse. And then you're just like,
all right,
quick.
Here we go.
It's like, all right, if you click into this, you have to commit. But we were talking about this, about how, like, there's so many people in other niches. Like, I kind of got into a guitar, like, binge a while ago. I bought some new guitars and, like, I used to play and stuff.
Nice.
And I realized, like, your basic, like, average middle class guitar YouTuber has like 1 million subs. Like, that's super normal.
Oh.
And, like, there's just more people interested in guitars than cameras, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think music in general, there's so many music channels, and the thing is, I feel like the niche of music is so big, but it also breaks off into other niches of music, so guitar or recording or audiophile technology, or or people make videos specifically on like beat making apps for your phone. And I think each of those niches is like as big as the camera one. And there's a lot of crossover between. So you might love an Andrew Huang video for all of what's that synthesized cable-y stuff. And then watch that and suddenly watch a Ryan, what's Beto, what's that guy's name? He does guitar stuff.
Oh, I'm not sure. I'm not familiar.
Something Beto. And even though their channels are like so separate from each other, I think the audience is interested often in both or can pull information from both. Whereas, I mean, every time you see someone in our niche make a video like, here's actual techniques on storytelling, people are like, shut up. Tell me about cinematic cameras. And you're like,
That's what's so frustrating, right? Is like you can build this like really beautiful film or something that is just a creative passion, and you think like, oh, this really lines up with my niche, but because it doesn't have A7S in the title, like nobody's going to click on it, nobody watches it.
Yep. And so we're often stuck in this world where even if there's something else we want to talk about in filmmaking, in storytelling, you often have to find a way to package it, let's say, into something that your audience or the average audience of this content is going to watch, which is honestly kind of exhausting.
But no, the way that you've packaged your material is exactly what I was trying to do with my stuff as well. And that's blending entertainment, blending comedy, blending fun into this niche that just takes itself way too seriously. And I don't know about you, but like I have had a real battle with that because half of the time people, love it. And those are the subscribers and the fans. But then say you get an NDA product and you're one of the early people to review that product or whatever, you get all these people that don't know who you are. And it's just like an endless amount of comments about you're an idiot, you're stupid, you're like so dorky and ridiculous. And like, obviously I don't like, you kind of have to have a thick skin to play this game, but I don't know, like Sexy Camera Boy, like Sam Colder, Peter McKinnon, like they seem to do better because they're more serious. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
am I overthinking it? Or
no. I think you're fully on there. I mean, I've never referred to Peter as Sexy Camera Boy. He's a longtime friend of mine. I mean, even Peter, I think, is somewhat of an anomaly in the space. I think he's
extremely entertaining too. So
he's built for this. He was a magician. He taught workshops to magicians on how to incorporate storytelling into magic. So he has this incredible skill set to not only speak to a live audience and be entertaining, he has the entertaining background, but also he knows how to deal with hecklers. He knows how to do all these things that you don't really learn outside of that world.
Did you know that I met Peter at a magic conference, Magic Live in Vegas, like
that's so
9
funny.
years ago?
That's so funny.
He was still working for Still Motion at the time.
Peter was working at Still Motion at the time. What's funny is Peter got that job over me. I had applied for the same job. So a bunch of people applied for it. Me, my wedding filmmaking business partner at the time, Peter, and one other person. The four of us got interviews. And
that's amazing.
Peter got it. And honestly, even at that point, he was way more qualified for the job than I was. So I don't.
Well, yeah, I mean, at that time I was doing magic full time, and then I was shooting weddings on the weekends. And gosh, I guess we're going way back to 2009, 2010 now.
Yeah.
And Still Motion was like the king of the world at that time. And I mean, it was such a crazy time. And I just ran into him at a convention. He was like filming with a 7D at a magic conference. I was like, oh, cool, 7D. I have one of those. And he's like, yeah, I do weddings and stuff. I work for Still Motion. I'm like, oh, I know Still Motion. But anyway, so you knew Peter back then,
known him forever.
Before everything. And I also just knew of him because of that one interaction. And when he started blowing up, I was like, oh, it's that guy from the magic conference.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, I think he was just built for it. Now there's also this like, there is the real sexy boy travel vlogger. There's so many of them. Sam Colder comes to mind. and I even want to be careful
Sam.
because
I want to interview him so bad. I want
to be careful because I have that dude is so much more talented of a filmmaker than I am. He's just actually, and so I think it's almost easy to like tease
Put
him.
him in a box. Yeah.
Well, because it's like, what? You're better than me and you're better looking than me? That's not fair. Did you stack the deck?
Yeah. It's like all these comedians talking about Ryan Reynolds and how upset they are about Ryan Reynolds because he's
Right.
attractive, he's a great
And
actor,
funny.
and he's funny.
Yeah. It's not fair. Some people just have it all. But who knows? You know, maybe Sam cries himself to sleep at night. I don't know, right? It's easy to just to think they have it all when
Yeah,
it's
and
rarely the
if
case.
any of those boys are listening right now, we don't mean anything but love towards you, and I would love to interview both and get to know you both. But
So would I.
I just have found for myself doing really, like, I was like, okay, I'm gonna put entertainment first and then information second. That was always my direction, and I feel like for you, like, you're so focused on your entertainment value is so much higher than most YouTubers that
Thank you.
like, is that a struggle for you to balance, like, or is it just you being yourself? That's the thing. I feel like you're just a funny guy.
If I break it all down, like, the only reason I make video is because it ties me back to my youthful self of making skate videos. I always made videos because I wanted to, and so if I'm making content that's just educational,
Yeah.
I just don't want to do it, because as much as my mom always told me, you should get into teaching, you should be a teacher, you're a great teacher, it doesn't excite me. And so I think there is a certain skill set that I seem to have sometimes where I am able to help articulate things for people, but at the same time, if I don't enjoy doing it, I don't want to do it. So a lot of the reason that I include some of the entertainment stuff is just because that's me enjoying the process. And if I don't enjoy the process, I'm not going to do it. And now that I'm at a point where I have contracts with brands and there's like a certain amount of videos I need to make, I really have to be on top of, making sure I still like doing it, because contractually I have to keep doing it.
Sure. You said process like an American. Was that intentional?
Did I say process, or do people say process?
Canadians say process.
I say processed cheese and like trust the process, like that basketball thing.
Yeah, exactly.
They're different words for me.
It's completely off topic, but an interesting observation none the least.
And funny enough, I spent this whole morning, actually, before this call, I've been writing a script that will probably be one of my first forays into a more educational video, a video that's more focused on the content than the entertainment value of it. Yeah, so I've been working on this script that's less edutainment and more just about the content, and we'll see what happens when I actually edit it, because who knows. But I do find that packaging it into a more entertaining format is the hardest part. So it's the funnest part, but it's also the most complicated part of the process. And so the less maybe like present I am in my life, like the more stressed, anxious, whatever, as my life feels cloudier, creating those same edutainment type videos gets harder. And we're just in the middle of like weird renovation stuff. The studio's got weird renovation stuff. So it's hard for me to think of ways to make them entertaining all the time. And so I just thought, you know what, why not just do the opposite route that I normally do and just try and make this more content focused and see how it does. I've never really tried to make a video that's just about the education aspect of it.
Yeah, I'm interested to see it. I'm sure it'll do really well. And I've played around with that as well and have thought about doing a course series and things like that. And I think that the truth is people just love Jesse Driftwood and love just hanging out with you. And when people watch your content, it does feel like you're just hanging out. And that's the thing that really comes across through the lens of the camera, and something that I'm sure has just come through a lot of repetition of just filming yourself and being natural. I know for me, being, an entertainer previously, there is kind of this on-off switch that I will do. I turn the camera on, like, hey guys, today we're talking about the, and so I have to kind of like figure out how to ride that dial, because sometimes you do want that presenter thing, and then sometimes you don't. So
no, I think you're completely right, and it's the nicest thing that I get from people in comments is exactly what you just said, which is that people will say watching the videos feels like they're just hanging out with a friend. And that is the nicest thing that people could say about my videos. The meanest thing people could say, just kidding, but they say that too. And so I don't know exactly what that is. I don't have any entertainment. I don't really have any backgrounds, honestly. I like quite the
you're a wedding shooter, right? So
well, yeah, but even that was like an accident. The quickest way I could tell my story into filmmaking is like I made skate videos for fun as a kid. In high school, if I could, I'd make a video for a project. I tried to go to school for communications and media. It was garbage. Dropped out. Started traveling. Traveling made me make videos to send to my mom. I liked making videos. Got home and I was like, I should keep making videos. So I bought a camera, and then someone was like, hey, my sister's getting married. Will you shoot the wedding? And I was like, I guess so. And then I shot weddings for a while. Like that's, and I just did it because I was like, well, I want to make videos and people will pay me to make these videos. And so I just did that. And then eventually, it just kind of evolved until I got here. Just like constantly chasing down, how do I keep enjoying this process as long as I can? And where does that take me? And right now it's YouTube. It might not be a year from now. I really don't know. Maybe I'll do what you did. I'll move to Nashville, or I'll
work for Indie Mogul.
Yeah, work for Indie Mogul. I don't know. I'll take over Kinotica.
Yeah.
Kinotica.
I mean, so what is your daily life right now? Like, are you also doing a ton of other kind of like freelance projects while also maintaining your online
not right
presence?
Now. Not at all right now. My daily life right now is so chaotic, and largely it's because we've been doing these renovations and stuff, and we've got this new building in the works, and like it's all just going so much slower. And then you mix the pandemic into it.
Yeah.
And I tell people this all the time. Like I'm not first and foremost an entrepreneur. It's just not how my brain operates. So I almost never go to the place like, how do I build a business? How do I build a brand? How do I make this into something? I've never once had the thought like, I want to grow this to be bigger than a corridor digital thing or anything like that. I've thought I'd like to be a part of something like that, but it's not what, keeps me going. And so as regular life has been getting more stressful just by the nature of growing up, I just decided I wanted to slow down. I don't need to make more videos. And if I force myself to make more videos, at least right now, I'll start resenting the process more. And if I resent the process more, that maybe I won't do YouTube in a year becomes I won't be doing YouTube in 3 months. And I'm really, I don't want that to happen sooner than it has to happen. Does that make sense? I don't actually know if it's going to happen, but if it's in the cards for me, then great, I'll let it go and I'll do something else. But I don't want to force that to happen by becoming something I'm not, like trying to be ultra entrepreneurial, trying to grow this into some massive brand that I can, do something with. I know that if I do that, I'll be being someone that I'm not right now. And if I do that, I'll just resent it.
So are you like a full-time, like all your money right now is coming from YouTube essentially?
Yeah. I mean, I have a diversity of revenue streams. I've got my online course with Moment that I'm still selling. There's random things like Epidemic Sound and Music Bed affiliate links, Amazon. There is a bit of YouTube ad revenue. There's a small, like occasionally I'll do some Instagram deals. Not occasionally, most of my YouTube videos, I will incorporate an ad into them. It's spread out between that. In like last year, 2019, 2 years ago, I guess, I was doing more social media projects for other brands. Specifically, I was making Instagram stories for brands like Lululemon and Stoke Coffee and HP, the printer company, not the steak sauce company in Canada. But with the
I
pandemic,
wouldn't have thought that.
that might not be an American thing. I don't know. It's like A1
No.
steak sauce, but HP stands for House of Parliament, which in retrospect is Canadian.
There you go.
Yeah. So, since the pandemic, I have pretty much done no social media content for other brands, which is interesting. Part of that comes down to the fact that I was often being invited out to other places to travel in order to make that content for people. It was less often that they're like, we'll send you a product and you can make a little video for us to post. It was more so they were hosting an event or a learning experience or something like that, and they wanted me to document the process in the way that I do for them to share. So with the lack of traveling going on, I just haven't been doing that.
Can we talk about Instagram and like your rise to fame on Instagram? Because I think it's a really interesting story, and it's kind of part of like your recent video, Everything I Know About Instagram Stories you posted 3 weeks ago. It's a great video. Everybody go watch it on your YouTube channel. But just take me through the journey of like how you created this new niche and this new format, and how you just kind of blew up on Instagram. I think it's a crazy story.
Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't actually share this part in that video, Everything I Know About Instagram Stories, but why not? I was an avid consumer of Vine videos. Vine was it was so funny. I just loved watching it, but I never made a single Vine video, which is strange because I was making videos at the time. But I don't know if I didn't understand it or I wasn't comfortable being on the camera, whatever reason, I didn't do it. And then Snapchat became a thing, and same thing, I didn't understand it, but I watched a lot of my friends get into it and find really unique and funny ways to tell stories there as well. Never got into it myself, but because of those two experiences, I was like, I don't want to keep watching these new platforms arise, watch everyone else do interesting things, build careers, whatever, and then just sit back as a spectator. So when Instagram Stories came out, it's not even just that I had the idea to be like, this is my time, but my friend Zach, who was my wedding partner, posted an Instagram story where he had that like the puppy dog filter. And I was like, whoa, I didn't know Instagram had that, because they didn't at the time, only Snapchat did. And he said, if you go to post a story and you swipe up, you're able to import videos. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. I was so excited because Instagram wasn't really touting that as a feature at the time. It was, my understanding was like you could just put a photo there that would disappear. But that's what got the gears turning. I was like, oh, I don't need to record the videos in this app. It doesn't need to be restricted to how the app tells you to use it. And so I had a little Sony RX100 Mark IV at the time, and I decided to just shoot a slow motion shot of myself vertically, taking a bite of a donut while spinning in circles as fast as I could. It's not a great story, but I posted it. And funny enough, I got so many comments being like, whoa, is this the new like portrait mode on the iPhone 7 Plus or whatever it was at the time? And I was like, no. And they're like, well, how'd you do that? I was like, actually, this is funny. Peter messaged me and he said, how did you do that? And I was like, oh, I just grabbed my RX100. I shot it vertically. I shot it in slow-mo, span around, brought it into Final Cut, rotated it, scaled it up, added a little bit of music, spit it out of Final Cut, airdropped it to my phone, and uploaded it. And he was like, yeah, that's too much work. And he was one of the first people to like kind of laugh it off and be like, that's too much work. And I was like, you're right. That's hilarious. And so I kept doing it. And because Pete and I were friends, I was making all these videos. And as time went on, the amount of work that went into them was so much more than what I had just described. It wasn't just, here's a slow motion shot, export, upload kind of thing. It was, here's a day's worth of filming, import, turn it into something, export, airdrop, upload. And this was also during the time of Peter McKinnon's, somewhat iconic rise to fame, to success on YouTube. So he had about just over 300,000 subscribers when we started talking about this. And he asked, would you want to come on my channel and make a video about this? And at that point, I had no ambitions towards becoming a social media personality. I had no thoughts of becoming a a YouTuber, really. It was just, I don't know. I just hadn't really considered it. And so I was like, yeah, sure, I could do that. And he was like, great, does Tuesday work? And I was like, what do you mean Tuesday? I thought this was more like when someone says, we should hang out sometime. And I say, for sure. And then we don't. But because again, he's so built exactly for where he is now, he was like, no. He was very like pragmatic about it. Like, okay, so Tuesday you'll come, we'll set this up. Let's chat through some notes, some things you'd want to share. And if it wasn't for him kind of giving me that kickstart, like kicking me in the butt and saying, here are the things you'll have to consider when making a YouTube video. You'll need points you want to hit on. We can't just make it up as we go. I was actually able to be like, okay, yeah, I can come to your house, talk to a camera, which I'd never really done before that, and make a YouTube video. And it did really well. You know,
Is that the start crushing your Instagram stories?
Yep,
Why
exactly.
This matters?
Yeah.
1.2 million views on it now. That was in 2017.
Yep.
So that was like right during his kind of rise.
Yeah, that was that first year where he grew to 1 million. So I think he had just hit 400,000 right around when we posted that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I grew to like 10 or 20,000 followers on Instagram pretty much overnight from that video. And that's when I really thought I should consider this not as just a platform for fun. Because again, when I watched Vine and Snapchat, the thing that I was most envious of was how much fun people were having making these funny videos that, you know, at the time there was no set formula. There was no one saying a video has to be like this. A video has to be like this. Whereas when you research filmmaking, there are so many rules to filmmaking. The 180 degree rule, the shutter angle rule. And so what attracted me most was there really aren't any rules and you can just have fun with it. But again, yeah, when I made that video with Peter and I started getting followers, the idea of this could be fun and profitable. And I don't mean profitable like in a purely like give me the money way, but it was like I might not have to keep shooting weddings. And I didn't want to shoot weddings. You know, I loved shooting weddings. I hated editing weddings.
Me too.
And I always knew. In fact, still motion was they were kind of not only the front runners of making great wedding films, they were kind of the front runners of showing wedding filmmakers could make it elsewhere. You know, they were making ads for the Super Bowl and all this stuff. And so kind of thinking of that path, like there is a way out for me. It doesn't have to be commercials. It doesn't have to be traditional filmmaking. But if I look at what Peter's done and I look at this audience that's growing on my channel, I could really make something of this. And I did. So I just focused on being consistent, creating those stories every day, because at least at that time, that's what people were looking for.
Yeah. I mean, it was such a crazy time. That was also during the Casey Neistat era as of the daily vlogs.
Mm-hmm.
Was that an inspiration to you as well, watching Casey?
Yeah, there's kind of a fun story there. I don't want to get my timelines mixed up, but I actually did make a couple quasi-family vlogs before I was doing Instagram stories. And the story around that's a bit more obscure. But at that time, I was watching Casey Neistat vlogs daily, not with the aspiration to do it, just with a certain fascination, because I didn't know daily vlogging was a thing. I wasn't huge into YouTube. I didn't watch any other vloggers. And I was in Singapore at the time because my wife's parents were living out there. And she was watching me watch his videos while just, you know, taking some memory videos in Singapore. And she said, you know, I think you could do that. And I was like, I don't know. She said, well, you don't have to do that. But she said, I think you could do your version of that. And that's what like really helped me realize, yeah, like I don't need to necessarily do what Casey's doing. It doesn't need to be a daily YouTube vlog. It doesn't need to be that style, that format, that skateboarding. I don't know. Well, I guess I did do that.
The one wheel.
Yeah. And so that was really kind of inspiring to me to think maybe Instagram stories, at least at that time, is my version of that. Maybe I'm not a daily YouTuber necessarily, but there's kind of something to this idea of making these like fun in the moment videos and turning them out quickly.
And the fact that they disappear after 24 hours, I mean, it's crazy that you would put that much effort into a disposable video.
Yeah, it got to the point I was spending sometimes 6 hours just on the edit, and because I was still a wedding filmmaker at the time, I'd spend my days editing weddings, and then I'd go home, do dinner and bedtime with the kids, and then once my wife and kids were all to sleep, that's when I would start editing the Instagram stories. And I'm sure you can imagine if you don't start editing until 11, and you're spending 4 to 6 hours, naturally my sleep started to suffer, which was, you spend a year or two doing that, and eventually you're going to hit a wall. You're going to say, yeah, something's got to change. It's not a sustainable workflow forever.
Yeah, I mean, I work the exact same way with my YouTube life because I have 2 kids as well, and it was a similar situation for me. But I don't know. I'm kind of a night owl anyway, so like I love working at night because nobody's awake. You don't get any emails. Nobody's messaging you. It's such a great time to focus and just crank out work.
Yeah, I'm a way more efficient editor at night, and it's like it sucks because it's just not practical when you have kids.
Or when you're working with clients too, who are like working on a normal, like Monday is always the day where you get all the revisions and the emails, right? And then you gotta be there. But if you're asleep till noon, then it doesn't work out so well. Your most viewed video on your channel is flying with a 9-month-old.
Oh my goodness, that's so funny. That's actually one of those videos I made in Singapore. Which they weren't even YouTube videos. I actually made a bunch of videos in Singapore, and I can't remember, who kind of coined this style. And just so you know, I butchered the style in those videos. But they were videos, they didn't have music really. They were just fast cut, like audio, few second shot after few second shot. And I just put them on Facebook, like on my Facebook at the time, just as if you were posting a new profile photo. I just thought, yeah, I'll show my friends and family, not an audience, like my actual friends and family, because at the time, that's what Facebook was. It wasn't networking.
That's crazy.
What we're up to. And then I think it was, around the time when my wife was like, you could do what he does. I decided I should repost those onto YouTube and just see what happens. And, they got like a couple hundred views, something like that. And for some reason, that flying with a 9-month-old, which in retrospect, it's an obvious reason, that video just really took off. And maybe 2 years later, it just suddenly, it hit the algorithm and it skyrocketed.
1.7 million views.
Yeah, it's the kind of video that people are always going to search. Yeah, I mean, it's exactly that. It's the type of video that people will always search. Any family who has a baby of a specific age and they're maybe going to go on their first trip, a lot of people just go to YouTube and go like, how to fly with a baby, because if you've never done it,
it's awful.
It's terrifying, like going into it the first time. Like, what if they don't sleep? Are people going to hate me? What should I do? And yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people probably didn't like that video also in retrospect, because it wasn't a here's what to do. It was literally just a video of me flying with my 9-month-old, and being in Singapore. But again, that also for me showed like, hey, if you can find the right topics for videos, even if they don't like pop off right away, if it's the type of thing that people are going to keep searching for over time, I think people call that evergreen content, then there's something you can do with that. And I actually want to focus more on making specifically evergreen content, just because I think it's more fun. I like the idea of making a video that's going to be helpful for people, not just this week that the new camera is announced, but that people are going to be able to reference for years to come. And in fact, especially I've done videos reviewing various electric vehicles, and all those videos,
your one-wheel videos are,
they do well
in the top tier of your videos as well.
Yeah, and like I did one on like a knockoff one wheel, and that video totally flopped. I like maybe 20% of average views for me in that first week, 2 weeks. But again, it's the kind of video that people are searching for, because one wheels are expensive. So people are Googling cheaper alternative to one wheel or whatever they're searching. And then that video comes up, and now that it's over 100,000 views for a video that maybe got 3,000 or 4,000 views at the beginning. And it was like one of my favorite videos I've ever made. So I want to make more videos like that where I, first of all, don't just become a slave to YouTube analytics, right?
I know,
I'm sure
right?
we've both been there where you're just watching like how many people are commenting, how many likes versus dislikes, how many views, is this first place, second place, third place for the first 3 hours? Whereas when I'm working on a video with the knowledge beforehand that like my audience is not going to care for this, it's going to be a bit of a flop, I can let go of that stressful environment of watching the stats, and there's a certain kind of confidence in knowing that over time more people will see this video.
Absolutely. My good friend Jevin Dovey, he has these videos. Do you know Jevin?
Yep.
You know Jevin. Yeah, he does these drone like tutorials. They're like 40 minutes long or something. He'll do like a 40-minute Mavic Mini 2 beginner's guide kind of thing. And his subscribers aren't like clamoring to watch a 40-minute beginner's guide video,
right.
But over like a year, 2 years, like it starts to just get more and more views. I think now all of his beginner guides videos have like over 1 million views. It's insane.
Yeah, and it makes so much sense because your subscribers, if you're going to click on a video the second it goes live, it can't be an hour long. Because what are the odds that all of your subscribers have that much time that's just freely available the moment you give it to them? Whereas if you put out a 6-minute video on the hot new lens of the day or whatever, people are going to watch it because it's a hot topic. They want to talk about it. But once it's not a hot topic, who cares, right? But if you can make quality, informative content that people are going to continue to need for years to come, I think that's like a really smart long play. And drones are just getting more and more popular. So people are going to keep going back to those training videos that he made. My father-in-law bought a drone because he just he just was like, that's so cool. And who knows, maybe he's one of Jevin Dovey's, I don't know about subscribers.
My father-in-law, we had like breakfast, we were over at his house for Christmas, and he was like, I've been watching this guy, Jevin Dovey, recently.
That's
I'm
so
like,
funny.
what? I call him like every week.
Yeah, that's so funny.
What are some of the biggest mistakes that you've made along your journey as a content creator, and how can you share that with people who are listening who maybe are just getting started?
Ooh, I mean, I'll share one of what I think is one of my biggest mistakes that I don't know is a super teachable moment, and then we'll get into some other ones. But for the
Sure.
for the first, I don't know, maybe year, maybe more even, where I was like blowing up on Instagram, I had this idea. I was like, I'm going to respond to every single DM. There's this stereotype that influencers don't care and they don't want to interact. And I just like, because I'm such a community-focused person, most of my life is here in my city, a part of like my filmmaking community, my actual city community, my church community. I was just like, I'm gonna do it different. And so I responded to every Instagram story, which for maybe 18 months was about anywhere between 80 and 200 DMs a day. And the problem is, it's not even just that you respond to those messages. It's when you respond, they respond back, and then you respond. And it's like, in order to maintain that, I became a slave to my phone, which anyone who's had to do that, it's like, it'll kill you. Yeah, I mean,
Especially
maybe
with
not.
a wife and kids.
Yes, exactly. It's like, when would I have time? I'm like, well, I got to go to the bathroom, and I'd take a 30-minute poop, but I'm actually just responding to DMs. Sorry, everyone who ever got my DMs and just found out it was a poop DM.
They always are.
Yeah, and I got too wrapped up in what are people saying? How are they reacting? What does this mean about my future videos? Am I really being the like different version of an influencer that I always wanted to be or thought I could be? But then the day that I worked on that Casey Neistat like Christmas mall video, where the first day I made an Instagram story just like kind of teasing, and it was just like you could see a little bit of this abandoned mall. I got over 600 DMs that day of people being like, "Ah, you're on the Casey Neistat show with Peter McKinnon and Jesse Wells or whatever it is." And that was the day that I had to say, yep, can't do it anymore. There's no way I could possibly reply to 600 people and then maintain any of that. So
what was that video? That was the Casey Neistat Christmas video where he
we turned an abandoned mall into like a winter wonderland for the Boys and Girls Club of America. And it was, what a fantastic experience overall that was.
You were with Peter?
Yeah, so he actually called me like maybe the day before leaving, and he was working on it, and he basically said, hey, the more I talk with Casey and Jesse about this project, the more I'm realizing I won't be able to make any of my YouTube videos while I'm there. But he's still in his, meteoric rise at the time, and so he knows he can't drop the ball. So he said, will you come with me and basically like shoot, edit, produce my YouTube videos?
Okay.
And I didn't have
while he's there.
He's there, exactly. So when we get free time, we'll set up a shot in the hotel room, shoot some talking head, go out into the street, shoot a tutorial. So we did a few videos like that.
That's cool.
In the first couple days.
Fun.
Yeah, and then, but the thing is, when I finally met Casey on the shoot, as it was gearing up, we were there about a week. He kind of came up and was like, no, you do this now. I was like, okay, Mr. Casey. Yes, sir, Casey, sir.
To you?
Yeah. I guess like Peter introduced me.
Peter hired you.
yeah. Peter hired me. And, we got some videos out. But Casey was basically like, I don't want any focus away from this project. I don't want you thinking about YouTube videos. Like, you're just shooting for this. So then, I got a Note 7 or whatever it was at the time we shot it on. And I could be wrong on this, but like a good portion of the shots from that video came directly from Peter and I, which, I mean, to me, that was like, what a freaking cool experience that Casey is putting a video on his YouTube channel that I shot like a substantial portion of. It just really, it bookended the journey for me really nicely.
I asked when I had Levi on the show, which is a mutual friend of ours, Levi Allen. If you haven't listened to that podcast, go listen to it. But one of the things that fascinates me is just the way creatives work and their workflow and stuff. What was it like working with Casey, and what do you recognize in him that like made him so great during that time?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. I think that might be the only real time I've ever interacted with him. But I'm very careful not to really make any sort of character judgments from that, because first of all, it was like a $2 million budget shoot. There was about 100 people there doing set design, all this sort of stuff, like a million moving parts.
That wasn't a normal Casey vlog.
And every single person that was involved, the people making the snow, their Olympic snowboarders and stuff, everyone was turning to Casey like, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? So he was... it was incredible to see how focused he could be and like getting everything done, and also just very direct in a way that like I'm often so self-conscious, like how will people perceive the way I speak to them. Watching him work with these people was incredibly inspiring, because he was clearly so void of it matters what you think of me, and so full of it matters what these kids think of this entire process. So he was so focused on the actual, not just the video he was making, but the experience he was providing for these kids. And that was clearly such a bigger goal for him that it didn't matter that if someone asked him a question, he wasn't like, oh, good idea. I really appreciate you bringing that to me. It'd be like, yes, no, very direct, very concise.
I love that.
And that's my only real experience with him. I don't know what he's like as a dad. I don't even know what he's like as a vlogger. I only really know what he's like as as a guy who can somehow command a $2 million budget with 100 different people asking him for answers and still be focused on the experience of these kids, Christmas adventure.
What was the mistake for all of us? So you shared the one that relates to you, but I think that's also something that we can all learn from. I also have dealt with that. My cousins are full-time influencers. They wouldn't call themselves influencers. They like sell courses, but they have a couple 100,000 followers on Instagram, and they have a full-time staff member that answers every DM and comment.
Wow.
So I think at a certain point you can potentially hire somebody, I guess, to do that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, you could offload it. I mean, I'm making mistakes constantly, honestly. One of the mistakes also, I think, has been getting too invested in the comments, or even making videos that I'm trying to please everyone. I made a video about the Fuji X100 V. I think it was the X100V last year. And I made it like I make any video. I hadn't really considered who is the audience for this video. I just thought, I'm making a video for my audience, an audience that already knows me. And
the best camera you shouldn't buy.
Yeah, the best camera you shouldn't buy. And my whole thing was like, what a great camera. It's really expensive. It's expensive and it's niche-y, and it's most people talk about buying the X100 for the experience of shooting with that camera. It's just, the dials, it's nostalgic, it feels inspiring to shoot with. And my overall point was, I was like, yeah, and that's true about all of the X100s. So if it's the experience you're after, consider buying a used one. And Fuji fans went wild. They got so mad. Talk about the leaf shutter. I'm like, I guess so, but that's because there's 9 photographers in the world that use a leaf shutter. It's not true, obviously, but
there's also 100 other YouTubers that reviewed it.
Yeah,
with all
so I
that
guess
information.
There is 2 different ways to look at this. Like, one is make the videos you want to make it for your audience. The other is, though, I'm learning I should be more mindful when I make a video, not just who my audience is, but who my audience for this video will be. And beyond that, I wish I could remember who said this recently. It might have been Levi Allen. And I think whoever said it was quoting someone else, so doesn't matter. But like, stop making videos for the audience you have and make the videos for the audience that you don't yet have. So start focusing on who can you bring in with this video. Now, you obviously still have to care about your own audience, and you can't just shift gears, but I really hadn't considered before that video who was going to watch these videos and how much context they had for me, how much context they had for the style of videos I make, and I'm sure you've had that as well. People come on like, you don't know anything about making videos. So yeah, you have to have thick skin, but also I'm trying to be more mindful when I make a video to think about those who have no context, never saw my Instagram stories, never saw a YouTube video about me. Maybe it's their first time on YouTube and they're just trying to Google the X100. And so if all I do is at the beginning, maybe put some disclaimers or try and give them the answers that they would want, pretty succinctly, try and give that up front, and then I can be a bit more me.
I think Marquez Brownlee just has said recently, and I've heard a couple people quote it, is every video is somebody's first video.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you think about it that way, I mean, that's why a lot of the YouTube experts always say, like, right at the very beginning, you want to say, hey, I'm Dave Mays. I review cameras and I'm really cool. Make sure to subscribe if you like cool stuff about cameras. And I have a little pushback on that. Like, I feel like it kind of sucks. But there's probably a way to do that without it feeling so inauthentic.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know.
I think that's where I am right now, is that there are all these formulas that the experts have said, like, here is how you make a great YouTube video. You always got to do this, then this, then this, then this. And somewhat out of, I would say, arrogance, I just thought, like, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to make a different type of YouTube channel. I'll be a different type of YouTuber, which, and I'm not knocking that. I actually think that is a lot of the reason that I've found success. But I did it at the expense of discrediting all that information. Whereas I think the real goal and the real magic comes when you incorporate something, right? You bring this all together. I can take these formulas that people do know exist and use them as a guideline for my own personality, for my own way of making videos. And that's really where I'm at right now, is like, how do I keep making videos as if I don't care, as if I'm just making the videos I want to make, but don't assume I have all the answers. Don't assume that somehow, everyone else missed the boat on figuring out what works on YouTube and I'm, the golden boy that has answers. But no, really listening and considering the audience. It's been honestly quite helpful for not just my video making process, but my my brain. I write scripts now. I had not written any scripts for YouTube videos for the first couple of years anyways, whereas probably most of the past year, I've pretty much written a script that's more of a guideline. It's
Like
not
bullet points.
Yeah, it's not verbatim, but helping me figure out what am I going to say, and in which order am I going to say it, and being mindful of who's listening. So this video that I'm making, I'll give you an insight. It's probably not going to do super well because it's hard to explain. It's this idea that like more than you can articulate. So like there are some filmmakers can tell you exactly what they did and why they did it and explain that to you. And some can't. Some people are just operating on instinct. They're operating on gut, on feeling, on taste. And they're just as talented, right? And so just because you can't articulate why you made your video a certain way or why you chose to light it or frame it a certain way does not invalidate or discredit the quality of what you're making. Because I think articulating something and doing something are actually just two different skill sets. Articulating it is just about converting that information into language so that someone else can consume it. Whereas like some of the best filmmakers I know, they know nothing about camera settings. They know nothing about, all these rules that we think are so important. And yet they can make just stunning, astonishing work. So I'm trying to find a way to encourage people that just because you think you don't know as much as all these knowledge experts on Clubhouse, it really isn't descriptive of how talented you are or whether or not you can make good videos. And even to like elaborate on that, it's like, you've seen all those articles on here's good composition, and they tell you, leading lines, because what it does is it leads your viewer's eye down to, down the fence to the barn at the end of the fence or whatever. And they talk about it like this is a subconscious experience that your viewer has. But I think it's easy to forget, like you too are a viewer and you have also subconsciously followed leading lines. And to an extent, you're also probably subconsciously, or not probably, but a lot of people are subconsciously adding those leading lines into their frames, even though they're not doing it on purpose. They're operating at a deeper level.
Yeah, it's completely intuitive and like it's a natural talent that people have, and you can't articulate it.
So how do I clickbait that, Dave?
The clickbait is I can't articulate this, and then it's like a picture of you just like, like
I'm toying with these ideas of like fake it till you make it, right?
That's
like
good.
You know more than you know. I don't know. Still working on that part of the script.
That's hilarious. One of the things that I think a lot of people know and love about your content is that the first like 60 seconds of your videos are so planned out and so insanely crazy. I guess it reminds people of, your Instagram story days. But I mean, I'm curious about your like retention, like because of that. Do you see like people obviously watch that first minute, but do you see a drop off when you stop with the crazy effects, or like how do you keep people's attention on a 10-minute video when the majority of it's you talking, but the intro is like so eye candy that you can't take your eyes off of it?
I don't spend a whole lot of time in my analytics, largely because I just don't really understand them. So
I love it. I love the honesty.
And I think I have a lot of different micro audiences that make up my entire audience. So I have some people are watching it. They're just like, I want to see that cool editing. Some people just are there for that intro. They want to see the Instagram stories-y, transition-y type of thing. And I think some of them might click off as soon as it just becomes a more of a teachy video. And then the opposite is true, is people that know my Instagram stories less or my style of videos less click on it for a topic, and all of a sudden, there's drones crashing to the ground or whatever. And they probably go, this is not what you said it was going to be. And they click off at that point. So this video I'm working on now is going to be one of the first where there's just no intro at all. And I think I do need to experiment with now going forward, looking at the analytics, seeing the retention, seeing when people drop off in pure educational style videos versus edutainment style videos. And I don't know, we'll see. But I do know that this like constant pressure of making my YouTube intros like a new exciting thing that's different than any other YouTube intro I've made is very exhausting, and it makes planning videos next to impossible, particularly because oftentimes that first minute, it doesn't even come together. Like, I don't even know what it's going to be. I have rough ideas, but until I finish the edit. So, how do you plan to make a thing that you don't even know how you're going to make yet? Yeah. I don't know. But I do need to give myself permission to say, sometimes it's okay to take the camera, hit record, and talk. And not everything has to be me proving that I know how to make videos. And that's another lesson that I'm really learning right now, which is like, wow, I was really self-conscious making these videos that I needed to prove to people that I have the authority to talk about videos. And so in the video where I talk about videos, I also have to prove that I know how to make videos. But I just, now, who cares? If you don't believe me, you don't believe me. And that's like, watch another one of my videos. Not every video has to be me flexing my filmmaking skills. Some of the videos can just be, here is the content. And all of my friends on YouTube have been doing this forever, making videos that's just turn on the camera at the desk, say the things, maybe add some titles, you're done. It took you 2 hours. And I've never made a YouTube video that didn't take me several days, maybe weeks. And I used to be maybe proud of that. And now I'm just realizing I was a bit of an idiot that was downed, that was destined for burnout.
Well, I don't think you're a complete idiot at all, because you obviously have been able to grow a following. And I feel like now, you're about to hit 200,000. Everybody, let's go subscribe if you haven't already. Jesse Driftwood. Let's hit 2K, 200K. But what's so great about being on this platform and having longevity on it is that you can evolve and you can change. And I know we keep talking about Peter, but there was a moment for him where he transitioned to just sitting behind a desk and talking. And I remember, I'm going to be honest, I stopped watching him at that point because I really was there for all the crazy stuff. But I know for a fact, after talking to Chris Howe and Lizzie Pierce, when I interviewed them, he was like, dude, Peter was getting burned out. He hired a guy and he decided to treat it like a job and go home when he was done. And and he also grew faster than ever by doing that. Yeah, so,
he found a formula that was both sustainable for him on a personal level and that didn't slow his growth.
Yeah. And I think he's transitioning back now to maybe incorporating a little bit more of the whatever, he's doing less. I think he was doing 3 a week when he was blowing up, right? And then now was do 1 a week or something. But you can evolve and change as you grow on the platform, and you've basically built this great foundation of super fans that will pretty much watch anything you do at this point.
Yeah, that's the thing I think about a lot, actually, is I think right now, I have just shy of 200,000 subscribers. I don't know, 160 something on Instagram. But what I've realized is there's probably, let's say 10,000 people of that will watch anything I make. Even if I just put up a video that was 2 minutes long, just saying hey, thanks for being here, my core audience, about maybe 8 to 20,000, 8 to 15,000, 8 to 12,000. I don't know. Those people would watch it.
That's a lot of people, dude.
And that's a lot of people. And it's so weird. As you grow your channel, it's really easy to get bummed out on views. And then you forget, do you know how many people 10,000 people is?
It's insane.
It's an
arena.
It's an arena. It's so, it's I'm a sold out Beyonce concert. And for some reason that should make me sad? No, of course not. So, trying to keep the mindset that, sure, not every video is going to be a viral success, and I don't need to be a 5 million subscriber channel, and I shouldn't take for granted the 10,000 people, the full arena of people that are currently watching.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's a real, like, it's very relieving to think about it that way.
Totally. And I have a feeling that if you do this transition and this video that you're talking about and you're able to get into a good rhythm and a good flow, I think you'll see a lot of growth there, because I think you're on the right track with what you're thinking about evergreen content and just providing the content right out of the gate. One of the things that, Jevin and I talk almost every day. We kind of have like a YouTube accountability phone call every morning. And he's been growing a lot recently because he's learning to just cut all the fluff out. And it's like the title of the video is, 5 reasons why I hate the M1 Mac or whatever.
Yeah.
You click it and then he says,
Here's reason 1. Yeah.
So number 1 is this. Like, there's no setup, there's no intro. It's just like, you can't take your eyes off of it. I even noticed that with like Peter, like it's almost jarring how quick he gets into the content sometimes, where it's like you click on it and he's like, yeah, I mean, the camera just like really sucks at this one thing. And I'm like, whoa, wait, what? Like, you just jump me into the video within like 2 seconds. And that's, just the genre and the nature of YouTube is it's a different language than filmmaking. You don't have
it is a different language.
You don't have the long setup time of, of a film where you're sitting on a couch watching WandaVision and you're there to like consume it. YouTube is such a passive entertainment source. So,
and I think, so many of us got into the YouTube thing watching Casey, who was like the king of clickbaiting a video in a way that I actually do really respect. I'm not shitting on this at all. Of making, here's a vlog, here's the most entertaining part of the vlog, and make that the title. And I think a lot of us were like, got into YouTube thinking, okay, everything needs to be, what's the word when people do like vlog reviews? There's a mashup of a word that people have, I don't know, whatever. It doesn't really matter.
Vlaru.
Yeah, once I go there, I'm like, that's clearly not what they said.
Just a vlog review. Like Potato Jet did that really well, I think, and Maddie and Peter.
Yeah, but I even think all of them now are probably realizing, I think audiences are a little burnt out on just fluff,
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And I mean, it's also YouTube was a little bit at fault. YouTube was really prioritizing longer videos. And that does seem to be shifting.
Too.
Yeah, and consistency. So I think that's shifting both
100%.
Algorithmically speaking, and as far as what content creators are making and what audiences are wanting to see.
Yep.
So I don't know. We'll see what happens there.
I interviewed Hayden Hillier-Smith, who's Logan Paul's editor, a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about that and how, like, honestly, the big controversial moment for him and for Logan. They were able to go to YouTube and kind of change some of the policies, and they're like, look, you are incentivizing us to create daily content, to create long form, vlogs.
Right.
And like, if I make 5 videos in a week, I do better than if I do 1 a week. That's like better than all 5 combined, just because the way the algorithm works. And now it's set up to where, like, if you just make a banger video, like Mr. Beast or like Logan Paul is doing now, you can just do 1 a month. And like Logan's, I think, like taking a 3-month break anyways to like train for this big boxing match.
Yeah. And Matt Diavella's been doing the same thing, for at least the last while. He was just doing 1 video a month. I think he did that for a whole year anyways, where a whole month is just focusing on, not eating sugar or not using your phone or what, taking ice showers. I don't know. But, and it worked really well for him. And I also think when people can count on you, like can count on your videos to be good, you'd hope, and I think this is happening more and more now, that the algorithm will reward that. When you do finally put a video out, audiences will watch it because they've now grown to trust that it's what they expected to see. So I definitely want to push more into that direction. Both to see how it does for views in my channel, but also to see how it does for just my own mental clarity.
There's also this flip side, though. If you're telling me you've got 8 to 10,000 people that will consistently watch videos, who's to say if you did 3 a week, getting 8 to 10,000 views on each, you multiply that by 4 a month, you're going to make more money by doing that. You know what I mean? So like, your views might not be larger and you might accidentally hit one or two. That's the beautiful thing about it, is like I would just make videos. When I was at Kinotika on a roll, we would do 2 a week, and that was the best flow for me, because I would shoot, edit, upload in one day for one video. That was like, I called that my throwaway video.
Oh, interesting.
I would start at 10 o'clock in the morning. I'd finish shooting at noon, have lunch, edit the video, upload it that night, and it would go live the next day. That was my throwaway.
Right.
And then the next day I would shoot all day a review, and then the day after that I would edit all day, and then the last day edit a little bit more and upload. So within a week, I was able to do 2 videos a week. One was like an in-depth review, and then one was a throwaway. It blew my mind that the throwaway video with no audio underneath, with no B-roll, would get 5 times the views of the review. Because the content was like really easy to search. It was like topical. It was always like 5 reasons why you should buy the new Nikon Z6, or 7 of the things that I hate about this, or why you shouldn't do this, or whatever. And I would just ramble. And it was so funny how those with no music, no B-roll would do better. And I don't know. I feel like YouTube's sometimes more of an audio driven platform and not a visual as much.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I only more recently discovered how many people listen to YouTube while they drive. They'll just put a YouTube video on. They can't even watch it. I hope they're not watching it, but they'll just listen to it, or people that'll put it on a TV in the background. And actually, viewers find like having an underbed of music for a whole video quite exhausting. I've noticed that the longer a video of mine is, the retention will be higher the less music is in it. And I just think, I just think because the longer that it feels like a music video or a production of sorts, the harder it is to stay focused, where it's like, I mean, we're having a conversation right now. Who knows how long we've been talking? Like over an hour, probably. Like, especially if you consider
hour and 20.
Yeah, an hour and 20, right? It's easy to listen to someone talk for an hour when, well, first of all, if it's conversational or if it's someone who knows how to talk.
I mean, if it's you, then obviously people will listen.
If it's you. But yeah, but you throw music under it and B-roll constantly. I think that 20-minute video actually, it doesn't go faster. I think it goes slower.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you haven't obviously seen the Golden Hour podcast. I usually put like a techno beat under the whole time and just loop it. But
that's, I don't even think that's techno. That was bad beatboxing.
If you could have a conversation with the CEO of YouTube and give, I think it's a female, I forget her name,
Susan Wojcicki.
Yeah, if you could tell her like one thing that you would want the platform to do, what would you say?
Oh, okay. I had this thought on, I mean, I didn't come up with this thought. I think someone else said it. But I'd love if there was an option, like when you dislike a video, to actually say why. And I don't know if that would be helpful.
There is a were you satisfied with this video dialogue now, where you can rate it 1 to 5 stars. And then I think there's even a section to write your own comment on why you liked it or didn't like it.
Oh, so who knows? Maybe they're experimenting with this very thing.
A little bit, yeah. Dislike, though, like with the dislike button, I think that would be... Are you saying you would want to have access to see those? That would be
I think
brutal.
I would. I think I would be curious, especially for... Like, there are videos that I know exactly why people are disliking it, right? The Fuji video is a great example. Of course, these dedicated Fuji fans, and not even knocking them here, of course, me, not a traditional Fuji shooter, who's just like, yeah, buy the old one. Naturally, they're like, screw you. That's not a helpful video. But there are other videos where I'm truly just confused as to where the thumbs down's coming from. Not just mine, other channels as well.
I think there's people out there that are just haters that just, as soon as you upload, they have you on notification.
I know those ones.
Have you ever...
That's so weird. As soon as you hit live and it's like 3 dislikes and you're like, what?
Who are these people? Like, I wish you could at least see who the subscribers are so that you could like, see it's the same 3 people. Right, you can
hide them from the channel also because that hides their likes and dislikes.
Yeah, it's me and Tyler Stallman and Gerald Undone, you know.
Yeah. But yeah, it'd be kind of cool if when you hit dislike, maybe that just dialogue like, hey, what didn't you like about this comes up? And like, would you like this to be public to the creator? And would you like to share? I don't know. Who's going to do it? Maybe only a small percentage of the dislikers. But from time to time, it might be value because there is a problem when you discredit all criticism and call it hate.
Yeah, of course.
It certainly comes from quite an arrogant place, which assumes, everything I did was the right thing to do, and anyone who doesn't like it is a hater. Whereas I do want to make sure that if there are parts of who I am or what I'm doing that really are dislikable or, for a better term, like problematic, like if there's something I'm doing that is actually hurting some people, I kind of do want to know that because
Sure.
Because I believe at my core I'm a decent human being that like cares about how other people feel. And if there is something real happening, yeah, I'd want to know that. But also, that's also at the cost of you read a bunch of messages like just the meanest responses you could imagine. And then who knows, maybe the negative of that would outweigh the positive of the other. But honestly, in general, yeah, I've got no real suggestions for YouTube. I don't claim to know more about how YouTube should run itself. I think, honestly, anytime I hear anyone's opinion on like, this is what Instagram needs to do, or this is what Apple needs to do, I'm like, you're probably wrong. I just where my brain goes, which is like, there are a lot of very smart people working at these places that they're just smarter. I mean, they're certainly smarter than me. I don't know who you are listening right now, but they're probably smarter than you. And I also suspect that they're making decisions knowing people will think this isn't the right decision, but they're making them for reasons we don't fully understand, right? Like I'm sure they have access to more data than I do. I'm also such an optimist, so I just give everyone the benefit of the doubt. And that's a problem in its own. But yeah, I'm just like, I try not to spend too much time thinking about things that are out of my control. So if YouTube, Instagram, if they change the algorithm, okay, I'll do something different. But because my passion isn't leading content or like making commentary content on how algorithms are optimal to run.
Optimized.
Yeah. I don't care.
Why Canon? Why do you stick to Canon all this time when Sony is crushing it and everybody seems to be
here's
switching?
the funny thing. I actually kind of want to make a video about this soon. I was lightly brainstorming it this morning because there's a lot of reasons. For a period of time, I was contractually obligated. Here's some clickbait for you. Let's make this a clip. No, I got paid to do some ads, or not to do some ads. I didn't produce them. I was starred in some ads that Canon put out around the time the EOS R came out.
Yeah.
As like a creator who was using it, and I was using it, and they liked my Instagram stories, and they just thought, hey, would you be the character of they made several, one of maybe 5 characters that will be focused in an ad about this camera. And I was like, yeah, for sure. Like it wasn't in exchange for gear. It was like they paid me to do it. And in order to do that, they said, we do have to assign a non-compete, which makes absolute sense to me. So I think it was 2 years. It's expired now, but we had to go back and forth on the contract a little bit. Basically, I said that I couldn't make videos publicly stating that I was switching to a competing full-frame mirrorless camera. That's all it was. And I actually signed it happily because in my head, if you buy a new full-frame camera, I think you should get at least 2 years out of it. So I just think that's a wise investment. So I said to myself, great, like this camera, especially at the time, I was like, is more than I need from a camera. And so if anything, I did like having to constrict myself to say, you know what, even if Nikon, if Sony, if Panasonic, whoever puts out a better camera in the next year, in the next 2 years, I don't even have to think about buying it. And it did take away some of that pressure from me. So now, even though I'm not under that contract, I still bought the R5. I ended up selling it, make a video about that soon. The R6, I bought a C70. And quite frankly, I just like them. And honestly, more than ever, the C70, you just shoot it in C-Log 2. The battery lasts forever. You throw the dedicated LUT on it, and you're like, wow, that's a very good image. The autofocus is good. It's small enough that it fits in it just like really checks every box that I can think of. And I already have lenses for it. Like, now more than ever, I don't care about cameras because they're all so good. It's just inexcusable at this point. When people put out videos on the 5D Mark II that are better than anything I've ever made today, and honestly, better than anything most of us buying A7S IIIs, R5s, whatever are making, you just got to say, it's not the camera's fault, right? Who cares? So the C70 for me is like a perfect, especially a studio camera, because I can have it run forever, trust I'm in focus, throw a battery, lots of memory in it. It's just
plug it in. You got
and then I leave the R6 at home just for. It's got great autofocus. It's an amazing photo camera that I use for like my family photo stuff when we go on trips. Have you noticed
I heard the R6 has like some weird color thing, like it's more orange or more green. Is that true?
I don't know. Might be, but like I grade everything individually, and I don't think I've ever done a comparison video.
To the C70 or anything?
No, I don't really like for my own videos. I never run two talking head angles. And even if I'm like, if there's multiple people shooting a subject that I'm working on different cameras, I grade them differently, and they're never going to be identical anyways, because maybe one of them has trees in the background and one has bricks in the background.
Sure.
So I basically just grade, try and get the like skin tones and contrast as similar as possible, and I'm fine. I've made,
what lenses do you use on your C70? Are you using RF lenses, or are you using the booster, or what?
This is a funny thing. And I'll happily say this is my least favorite part of the whole Canon ecosystem right now.
Me too. I hate that it's a crop sensor with an RF mount.
Well, it's just that like I still use my M5 for vertical Instagram stories, and I use my R6, and I use the C70 primarily with a speed booster, except Christoph took my speed booster a couple weeks ago for a film shoot for his Komodo, so I haven't had it. But it basically means that even though I want to stay in the Canon ecosystem, I have EF-M lenses, EF lenses, and RF lenses, and that's just a little bogus. And I'm not a big fan of that. Thankfully, I have had EF lenses for a really long time, and that can be adapted to the R5, R6, and the M5 and M50. So
I know, but I wish they would make like a crop APS-C RF lens, like a 16 to 55 2.8.
This is funny. Right now, I'm filming on the C70 with the Sigma 20mm 1.4, and I love that lens, but it's a way better full frame lens than it is a crop lens. So when I have the speed booster, cool, it's quite a unique look. But to just put it on APS-C, it's like, it's not super exciting.
Exactly.
And then because there's no native RF wide angles for Super 35, you have to adapt EF lenses. So even though I have a 15 to 35, which is at home, unfortunately, on the R6, and even though it works great on the camera, it's kind of a nice 24 to 70-ish equivalent, if I want to shoot wide on this camera, I have to adapt lenses. So I have this, where is it? Oh yeah, I don't even know if I showed you this. I'm very fidgety. This is like
I love that thing. The 10 to 18.
Yeah, the 10 to 18. It's like, this thing has seen hell, and it's like, it gets stuck on the zoom and focus sometimes, but if I want to go wide on this camera, is what I have to use. It's not even mine. It's Josh's.
Well, I mean, you got obviously the gold standard, the Tokina 11 to 16 2.8, and the Sigma 18 to 35 1.8. I did a whole shoot last week with the Sigma the entire time, and as always, that camera or that lens is such a god lens. I mean, it just works so beautifully on every crop body, and it looks beautiful on the C70.
My Sigma 18 to 35 was like a joint purchase with my old wedding filmmaker partner. So we have a bunch of gear that we bought together in that era that we never sold off, because when we ended that business, it ended well, and it wasn't like who gets what. We were like, all right, you just let me know if you need it, and I'll let you know if I need it, and whatever. So he's had that lens for at least a year.
You should go snag it. It's a really great lens for the C70.
It didn't matter because Josh here at the studio also had one.
Okay.
And so I was using that for a little while, but he just sold his because he has an A7S III, and he has an FS7, but he mostly uses that with a speed booster. So he was like, I just don't need this lens anymore. And he actually found selling it was not easy. Certainly not selling it for a decent price. And I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that full
Everybody
frame
has
everyone either has it or full frame is now so accessible that
True.
there's not a whole lot of people currently investing into Super 35 comparatively to the past anyways.
That's a good point. And everybody's selling that lens because they're moving on to full frame. So there's like a ton of them on the market.
Yeah.
Which means it's a great time for you and I to buy one secondhand.
Yeah, true. And then my Tokina, I have an 11-16 somewhere, but it's in 2 pieces. I smashed it
They're
at a
so
wedding
loud.
once.
Yeah.
Yeah, very loud. So I ended up buying the 11-20 2.8, which is like the updated version of that. And I've never put it on my C70. Another friend of mine has it now for his YouTube channel. I just let him set up a thing there. But when I used it on the R, and this is weird because it didn't happen at all on my C200. When I used it on the R in 4K to make up for the crop, the fringing was unbelievably bad. I shot my original one-wheel pint review video. So many of the shots, it looks like I put a prism effect on. Like one side of my face will have a green edge and one will have a purple edge. And I had no idea because that was the first time I had ever put it on the R, put it in 4K.
Oh my gosh, I'm looking at it right now. It looks like you have a VHS effect on the footage.
So it's like some of the shots are C200 and some are R, so it like comes and goes, especially based on what lens I used. But yeah, a lot of the shots, people ask like, why did you do that? And I was like, I didn't. I have no idea what. And to this day, I don't know why the C200 didn't exhibit those same issues. I don't know if it has something to do with the mirrorless sensor, like being designed for, the micro lenses or whatever. I really don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
But I basically just lost faith in that lens and gave it to a friend of mine.
Sigma makes those really good M mount lenses. It's like a 16 1.4, a 30 1.4, and a 50. I wish they would do that for RF. So
I wish a lot of people
those.
would do things for RF. RF is real. Like Canon's put out amazing lenses, very expensive, mostly high-end lenses. But
Yeah.
Sigma and Tamron and Tokina, they've all kind of avoided it. And who knows, maybe they were just waiting to see that people are going to actually adapt to the system. But it's been bizarre how little third-party RF love there's been.
There's the have you thought about this Samyang 1428 RF? It's a autofocus lens. I feel like it would actually pair well with the C70. Have you seen that?
I mean, it would, but I already have the 15-35 2.8, and so I'm not going to sell that because I love it on my R6.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it's like 1 millimeter.
I don't have that lens anymore. It was it wasn't stolen, but I sold it. Thankfully, that was one of the few lenses that wasn't stolen when I got robbed. But
yeah, and I bought the speed booster, so I'm trying to mostly use it just as an EF camera, and I kind of love it like that. Like I haven't had any autofocus issues. It feels like full frame. It's weird because it's technically not full frame and yet wider than full frame because it's DCI. So it's hard to
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So I think if you compare it to like a native full frame sensor, I think you do actually get a bit of extra width.
That's awesome. Yeah. I need to pick up a 16-35, the F4 one with the IS built in. I need to get one of those.
Yeah, I think that's like what a great pairing for the C70 on a speed booster. I don't have a 16-35, but Christoph does. So I just use his on the speed booster and voila. And if not, I use the Sigma 20, which I've owned for a long time.
What LUT do you use for C200 to kind of get it out of log? Do you just use the Canon one?
Well, yeah, my C200's gone now. But yeah, for the C70, I just use whatever the official Canon. Canon has so many official LUTs. Like I downloaded a pack that has like 100 from Canon.
I know.
It's not 100.
I don't know which one to use.
And I couldn't figure it out. So I actually texted Gerald Undone. I was like, hey, I know you've done this. And then he's like, yeah, I'll send you like the right one. And I don't remember the name of it offhand, but he sent me an email called I Like Big LUTs and I Cannot Lie. And I think about that all the time because anytime someone else films with my camera, they're like, hey, what LUT? And I just forward them Gerald's email.
Could you forward that to me, honestly?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Okay.
It's like the correct one. And it's like, it's a punchy image for sure. But
You can dial it down.
Yeah, you can dial it down. And I just throw it into Final Cut, put it on. And it's like, if I didn't want to grade beyond that, I don't have to. It is just a really nice, the colors are nice, The contrast is nice. The dynamic range is great. That's honestly, that's all you need 90+% of the time. Yep. Especially when it's YouTube. I'm not trying to necessarily impart a specific emotion from the colors of my videos, right? I'm more giving you information than I am giving you emotion.
Yeah.
Whereas filmmaking traditionally is, at least it's a balance of the two.
Yeah. I mean, I bake everything in. I usually don't shoot log for YouTube.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's probably a smarter idea. But now that I basically just trust these conversion LUTs.
It's essentially like baking it in.
Yeah, and I don't know if you edit in Final Cut, but I basically just...
I do.
Yeah,
We're both Final Cut boys.
Yeah, I throw them all into Final Cut. You select all the clips in the... Not the Finder, in the... what is it?
Inspector.
But the Inspector is the thing on the right, like Command 4, is technically. The view. I don't know, whatever. I just select all the clips, go into the metadata and click info.
Oh, you mean the browse? Yeah, the browse.
Yeah, the browser.
Area.
So I just select every C70 clip, go over to the actual like info tab in Inspector, and I just throw the LUT on. And what's nice about that is now in the browse, it's not log anymore. Now you just see all the clips as if you had shot them not in log. And then you also get the added, and then I grade on top of it. And you get the added benefit of shooting log, which is that you have more dynamic range. So at least if I did accidentally overexpose the shot, like right now, no, I can see that this isn't overexposed. But even if on my screen this was showing a little overexposed, the log image would still actually be lower than that.
Yeah, exactly.
So if I needed to, I do have that extra wiggle room, but it's really not often that I need it.
My only problem with the C70 is the screen and the lack of an EVF. I wish it had an EVF really bad, and then the screen itself feels like it's going to snap. It's going to break off.
Yesterday I was touching it, and it wiggle. I don't understand because here we've got an R.
Well, the R is better. Yeah,
I've had this camera for 3.5 years, and I
was never afraid of that.
Yeah, I've dropped it so many times. There was one time I was even filming while I was like one-wheeling. I had a tripod at the bottom, and I had it like right at the ground in front of me, and I think I fell and I just smashed the camera into the ground. And it's totally fine. Whereas the C70, to my knowledge, I haven't dropped it yet. But the pin that you tie a rope to for like the sensor distance.
Yeah.
That threading thing, that's already broken off of my C70. I noticed it was like wiggling, and I was like, oh, that's weird. I guess it needs to be tightened. And I threaded it off to have like a look inside, and the part that it threads into just fell into the camera. And so I was like, what? So who knows? Maybe it was loose and something hit it or like popped it out of spot. So, I mean, who cares? I've never needed that for my own uses.
I'm going to take it out anyways.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is it does feel like they skimped a little bit, or they did something to make it lighter.
Well, they definitely did. I think part of it comes down to the fact that it's more or less a C300 Mark III, a double the price more, is it double? I don't know. A much more expensive camera, and they needed to cut cost somewhere, especially in order to give you an image quality that's comparable. So I think honestly, even though it's a higher end camera than an R5, I think the cost of the C70 comes more from its internals than it does its body. Whereas I think on an R5, it's one of the higher end cameras you can buy from Canon. So it does have a very sturdy body design. And that's really the worst part of this camera is the plastics are not nice. And the top handle is the worst plastic I've ever felt in my life.
Yeah, it's really unnerving when you touch it. It's like I've never felt a texture like this before.
If I had it nearby, I'd grab it just to move my thumb on it because it's like it probably sounds like this. Like it doesn't work on the mic, but
you hear that?
Yeah, it almost feels 3D printed in its,
Yeah, it feels like chalk, like a chalkboard or something.
Yep. Yeah. So. It's a bummer, but again, for me, it's mostly going to be a studio camera. I'll take it on proper shoots for sure, but in the way that my Rs and my M50s, those were always cameras that like they're in my bag everywhere, no matter what. and I'm pulling them in, throwing them back, like shooting everything with it. That won't really be the case for me with the C70 as much. It's not going to be an always in my bag camera. So I don't have to be as worried about it living to the same abuse, but I
am. I mean, I'm going to be using this for everything. I'm worried about it.
Yeah, I know. I texted someone I know at Canon. I was like, hey, can you just like point me in the right direction of who to talk to about, some of these issues? One of them is that some on-screen displays disappeared. I figured that out. But yeah, the other is that pin that just dropped in. I was like, I don't remember dropping it. Who knows? Maybe it was loose and I dropped something onto it and it pushed it down.
That's weird, man.
Yeah, it is weird. But other than that, what a great camera. Like,
yeah, the image looks incredible, and it's because it is plasticky, it is lightweight, so it's not that heavy to hold.
Yeah, and it's not too tall, so it's not like you need a bag that. Yeah, whereas like a 1DX, you needed a special bag that could support, a camera with a grip attached.
Yep.
Even I have Peter McKinnon's bag here somewhere. A 1DX never fit in it, which I always thought was kind of funny because he so iconically used the 1DX. I know he doesn't anymore, but what's great is the C70 fits. It fits in all of my bags basically the way a 5D or similar sized camera would have. And so I'm like, great. It's smaller than my C100, which I don't know where that is now, but
I feel like they should have just called it the C100 Mark III.
I'm surprised they didn't, because it in a lot of ways it is the successor to that camera. And if it existed back when I was shooting weddings, this still would have been the first camera I picked up. Maybe an A7S III now. I don't know.
Well, the Blackmagic 6K Pro is incredible. Built-in NDs with a
It's
EVF.
great, but when I shot weddings, when I first got a camera with autofocus, I think, you know what, actually, I think the M5 I started bringing out to weddings just for autofocus, and I had a speed booster that some random guy I found online made for me, and I was putting full frame lenses on it to try and make up for its lack of actual good image quality. But the first time I was able to track a bride coming down the aisle with shallow depth of field, I was like, what a game changer. Because for years you're using a 5D, a 7D, whatever, with these fast primes and low light trying. And basically in the edit, you could only choose, like, here's the 2 seconds of that I nailed the focus. And maybe it's not the best expression. Maybe like the dad is sniffling a weird way or something. But then once I got autofocus, my edits got better because I could choose the best moment, not just the best technical moment on my end.
Yeah.
So
totally.
I wouldn't pick up a 6K Pro right now. I think that camera's unbelievably good, especially at the price
point.
I mean, I have other weird qualms with Blackmagic, but
they talk about build quality with them. I mean, falls apart all the time.
I just don't think Blackmagic needs to make $2,000 cameras. Make that a $3,000 camera and put some of that money into a better plastic or a better physical design, because their internals are second to none. I love that they're included raw, that you have the variable size, like it's a red camera. It's
basically,
and their new, what is it, V5 or whatever color they're on is awesome.
It's so good.
But I require and rely on autofocus so much now, not even for continual autofocus. I'll often like turn it on, get focused, turn it off, just so I know for sure it's in focus.
I love that the little AF on button is right next to the lens here. Mm-hmm. I've been using that a lot. Like I'll just lock on my face and then turn it off or whatever. Yeah. But it's a shame that like the autofocus, like I love the layout of the R5 and the R6 and how you can just tap to track and like the eye tracking. Like why can't they put all that in here? I don't know.
Oh yeah, that's the other qualm. It's like it is unfortunate that from a tech standpoint, the R5 and R6 are more advanced than the C70, at least in the way the autofocus and stuff like that function. It was a shame I went from the R5 to the C70 in terms of like the order that I got them. And I was like, it's like the C70 autofocus is good, but why doesn't it have eye autofocus? And why isn't it as smart and snappy as these older cameras that I have?
Yeah, like the EOS R is technically better.
Yeah, still better. The only thing though that like I love face only autofocus. There's nothing that drives me more nuts than when the camera loses your face or something like that, and it's just like, all right, here, you've put your box right here, so that's what I'll try and focus on now. Or even if you step out of frame, or if you're tracking someone walking towards the camera and maybe they walk past the camera, that that when you see this, it's a very like low budget looking thing where all of a sudden the camera now just racks focus to the background.
Yeah.
It's much nicer to have it only doing the focus that you want it to do.
Yeah, why don't they put that in the R5? It's just a software
I don't know.
thing.
I mean, Sony's got the issue where now the FX6 and FX9 have face-only autofocus. The A7S III doesn't because it's not a cinema camera. But the FX3 also doesn't. Well,
the FX3 is a weird camera. It's just an A7S.
It's just an A7S with some screw holes. and it's weird because I can't say anything bad about it because it is like one of the greatest cameras ever made. The A7S III is
I know, it's
unanimously
so
praised. Is there anyone that has had anything bad to say about it?
Armando, but it's just because he doesn't like Sony.
Did he? What did he say about the A7S III? That doesn't really matter.
I'm just joking. Oh, okay. He's just a Canon fanboy.
He does like Canon a lot.
Yeah, no, I think he just posted a FX3 video and he liked it a lot. I mean, it's a great camera, but I don't know. It doesn't really matter anymore because they're all kind of the same at this point. And they're all really good. But yet it does matter because if you talk about it, you get more views. So
yeah, and that's the weird part with YouTube is like to an extent you have to play the game, and the game isn't very fun. But getting to like make YouTube videos and have fun making videos for a living is very fun. So
absolutely.
In order to do the fun thing you love and turn it into a business, you have to balance the joy and no joy aspects of it all.
At least if you're in our niche. That's why I'm thinking about leaving our niche.
I think about it maybe 3 times a week I think about deleting all my social media. Well, so right now I am working on some more evergreen content, some stuff that I want to be able to be searchable for a long period of time, particularly because the thing I'm most exhausted about in YouTube is making videos about making videos. Whereas when I'm making a review on and the problem about that too isn't even just making videos about making videos. It's making videos about making videos for people who will then make videos about making videos. I don't want to teach you how to teach people to be a YouTuber that teaches people. It's like it goes on eternally to infinite.
Yep.
Whereas I have way more fun making videos that are, a random electric bike or something like that. I love experimenting with things, and I like making videos in the process, and I find I'm more creative when I'm making videos about a thing than when I'm making videos about making videos. So, hey, listeners, feel free to steal this idea because I've been thinking about it for years and I've never done it. But I kind of want to go down 2 lanes with my channel, which is, make the videos I want to make, be it product reviews that aren't camera gear related or be it, lifestyle-y things. But then appeal to the niche where I basically will break down some of the effects or techniques that went into that other video. So then if you research, like, even if it's a camera review, it's because I shot it on the other one. Then I now have all this content, B-roll, if you will, this like talking point, but I'm also appealing to the game. So some of the videos are long game. It's people are going to search this forever. Some of them are short, but they both will actually feed into the other. So in theory, at the end of a product review, you could say like, hey, if you're interested in any of the effects that went into making this, we've also made a separate video where we break that down.
Yeah, exactly.
And then in that breakdown, you can be like, hey, if you want to actually watch the full video, here's the link. And I don't know if that needs to be 2 channels, but probably not.
No, you can do it on the same. I think if it made sense. Jevin did 2 channels. He was doing like travel films on one, and then he used all the footage from those travel films to talk about something, whether it's a product or whatever. Yeah. And he was like, it's just too much work trying to manage 2 channels. So he just merged them together, and now he's doing like these overlanding videos that are like narrative storytelling films on his main channel. And then he's got content for the whole month. Like,
wow, to talk about that,
yeah. So, and the views on those narrative films are like a quarter of the size of his normal reviews.
For sure.
He's like, I don't care. Like, my fans like it. I like it.
And it's also worth remembering that, like, Just like that flying with a 9-month-old, there is no saying that one of those videos doesn't pop off 2 years from now, because that content is always relatable. 2 years from now, your video on the A7 III isn't going viral, right? It's the interest in it is gone. But if you make a video about, I don't know, making videos in the woods, or I don't know, if you go the Craig Adams route, those types of videos are relevant forever.
It's true.
You know,
it's true. Yeah, Craig's a great example of it. We were talking about people
transitioning.
Who transitioned.
Yeah.
And I actually interviewed him about that, and like it's pretty cool how he's transitioned. Do you know John Hill, Sarah Dietschy's fiance?
Good friends.
Yeah, like, I mean, he's about to hit 1 million subs, and he just does skateboarding videos. I mean, have you thought about doing that?
Yeah, I've actually, this is funny. I started working on a YouTube video 2 years ago, April. I basically want to make a video about how skateboarding changed my life, and that the whole mentality of skateboarding is about self-improvement. It's very not outward competitive. You know, there's a little bit of X Games and stuff like that. Sure. But in general, everyone is so focused on like, how do I be a better skateboarder than I was yesterday? And then even you're at a skate park and you see someone who's, let's say, way worse than you, and they're working on some trick all day. As soon as they land it, even if you could do that first try, every try, everyone is hyped. It's at its best. And, you know, there are downfalls to that whole subculture. At its best, though, it's a very encouraging self-improvement type of landscape.
That's awesome.
And so I actually filmed both an interview with John Hill and a bunch of B-roll of him skateboarding that eventually will live in this video that I want to do about skateboarding. But I have other people that I still need to interview for it, and now we're, you know, in pandemic land, and it doesn't quite work. But I want to interview people that aren't still like skateboarders, so that skateboarding isn't still their primary thing, you know. There's some famous directors. There's one that I can picture off the top of my head. Anyways, some like famous big filmmaking directors that also got their start doing skate videos. So I'd love to interview people like that. And then even people outside of filmmaking to just see, how did the mentality of skateboarding benefit or maybe detriment? I don't really want to go down that road. But how did it affect you as an adult now? I just find that fascinating, because I really think getting into skateboarding as a kid is like the best thing I ever did. And I think everyone has a story as the thing as a kid was the best thing ever, but that was mine, and I want to share it.
For me, it was magic, and then stop motion animation. I like got really into that with Legos and clay figurines. And,
stop motion I've only ever done a little stop motion. Is so tedious.
Oh yeah, I wanted to be an animator. I was going to go to school to I wanted to maybe work for Pixar. And so when I was a teenager, my dad gave me After Effects. I think I had CS2, After Effects CS2.
Yeah.
And I mean, I got really into that. And the kids these days have access to so much. It's insane.
So much. I mean, you could do it all just on your phone. On any phone every kid has, you could do that whole like animation, stop motion. It is doable. Actually, this video that I'm working on now, that hard to articulate video, has a section where I teach. I don't know. I show something that I did in an edit that I learned from Kevin Perry in one of his like stop motion-y magic special effects type videos.
Yeah. I mean, this entire interview we've been doing with stop motion.
Wait, what? Have we?
Is it really video? We're just taking 24 frames per second.
Right. We're just doing it way faster. Yeah.
All right, Jesse, I feel like I've taken too much of your time. We could probably talk for another 3 hours.
I'm sure we could.
It's been 2 hours, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on the show and for this great conversation. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Yeah, dude,
soon,
thanks so much for having me. This was a blast. I'm sorry it took, a year or something to make it happen, but
no, not at all.
I'm glad we got to even just sit down and chat, like podcast aside. It was nice to, chat it out, both during and before.
Absolutely.
Sweet.
As two dads to another.
Trying to make this YouTube thing work.
That's right, man. All right, everybody go subscribe to Jesse. Get him to 200K.
That'd be really nice. Sweet. Peace out, dude.
All right. See ya.